So now that WB Discovery is up for sale, there is a debate going on in regards to who exactly can bid and buy WB Discovery's assets. And in this video, as I did with Fox and the last two acquisitions of WB, I'm going to explain to you who can bid and why Disney can in fact bid and acquire their assets, including DC Comics and, well, DC Studios. Let's get to that. Okay, we have a lot to talk about in this video because, once again, I'm going to try to set the record straight on something I've been correct about every single step of the way in regards to WB being sold, WB merging with Discovery, how that was going to play out, how they only had about 2.5 to 3 years and they were going to be set up for a split, about how Discovery's positioning themselves with IPs to make themselves more lucrative, how they rejected buyouts and mergers because they're trying to raise the stock at a premium, and how ultimately Disney can now be somebody that can bid on them. Now, you're going to hear a lot of people say this is impossible. This is because these people literally don't know anything. I'm telling you right now, Scoopy McDoopies 420s on TikTok and Patreon and OnlyFans, wherever they're selling their scoops, they don't know anything about this. They're just squawking what others are saying without looking at the facts and how this can happen and what picture they're painting right now and why WB Discovery specifically stated things the way that they did. Once again, you just got to look at Fox and their holding pattern in selling to Disney to see the same exact pattern here. And how at the time, everybody said Disney cannot buy Fox because that is antitrust. That is all sorts of problems. That's going to raise concerns. And then they ended up doing it. They said the same thing about the merger between Paramount and Skydance, and that happened. They said that about Discovery and WB, and that happened. I'm going to spell out for you in the simplest way possible how Disney can buy WB Discovery and DC Comics and DC Studios. So we are going to need to break this down to the most basic fundamental levels so you guys understand what I'm talking about before we really get into the Disney aspect of it. So WB, over the course of the last 30 years, has always been in trouble. And this all dates back to the late 90s and the early 2000s, when it became AOL Time Warner. It was a buyout with, yes, America Online when they were massive, and this buyout / merger with WB. At that time, WB was already struggling, and they never really recovered since then. Yes, there was ups, yes, there was downs, but it's always been this path for them, where inevitably something was going to happen. And this goes all the way back even to the early 2010s, and especially the mid-2010s. As, if you guys remember, Bob Iger revealed in 2017, going to 2020, that during that time, he was actually in talks with not just Fox, but WB, after they were already resold, that he was interested in acquiring that entire catalog. The reason that they went after Fox was simply because of assets that Fox already owned, but also they were more lucrative at the time with their assets lining themselves up primarily better with Disney's goals. Now, those goals don't matter anymore. So the current status of WB Discovery and their assets is bleak. I need you to look at everything that they are currently putting out, the amount of content that they're putting out, films, TV, cartoons, and everything else like video games, comics, and everything. There is now less than ever. This is a systematic way of Discovery, the parent company of WB, streamlining everything. They are doing what we call trimming the fat off the sides. This is exactly what Fox did. Just go back to when I was telling everybody Fox is doing what they're doing right now because they are setting themselves up for a major purchase with the highest bidder. They trimmed the fat, only stuck with franchises and properties that they knew would pull in eyes, pull in decent reviews, and set themselves up for a perfect purchase for Disney. This was a major factor. Right now, WB Discovery is in that same holding pattern and raising their stock prices through announcing a rejection of a bid to see where the ceiling is with one company, and now publicized bids as they come in will be fought with multiple studios bidding to outdo one another to raise the stock. Just like how Universal was raising the stock for Fox's acquisition. They were never going to get it from Disney, but they knew what they were doing. Raise the price high enough because Disney wants it so bad that they have more debt that they inherit. That's exactly what WB is doing right now. So now that I've explained all of this, let me tell you how Disney has a chance and can own everything. I just want to stress this right out the gate. I do not want this to happen. I hate all these conglomerations and these giant megacorps that are forming into one with barely any voices and different offerings. I really do. The whole reason I supported the Disney buyout of Fox was because Fox was dead. There was nothing. They were going to be a carcass regardless of what happens. WB is in that same position, unfortunately. Do I wish that they could survive and stay independent? Of course. But the fact of the matter is, they're on hard times, as is everybody else, which is why we're seeing so many mergers as the media landscape changes. So what we're looking at right now is WB Discovery, like I said, trimming the fat, and this is where we get Disney. So looking at everything that WB Discovery owns, I'm going to list a few of the key assets that are obviously up for sale. So first and foremost, you have something like Fandango Media, which they own 25% of with another company. You of course have DC Studios. You then have Warner Brothers Theater Ventures. You have WB Home Entertainment. You of course have their connections to theme parks. You have New Line Cinema. You have Castle Rock Entertainment, Spyglass Media Group. You got the WB Television Group, which includes a ton of subsidiaries and partnerships, such as how they own 12.5% of CW per their venture. You own a bunch of free cable networks and cable assets. They, of course, own streaming with HBO, Cinemax, TNT Sports International. They own a bunch of news outlets. You know, they own TBS, TNT, TLC, HGTV, the Science Channel, Animal Planet, all this stuff, right? On top of this, CNN Worldwide and all the CNN subgroups and stations. Now, this is all important. I'm listing all this because you guys need to understand the size and scope of WB. And this is literally everything I've listed is about 20% of all the assets that they own. It is absolutely massive. Now, the reason I'm stating all this is because you guys need to understand what Disney would do. Disney would not bid on all of it. They would bid a premium price for all of it, while also stating we don't want all of it because we can't own it. They can't own all the news stations. They can't own all the non-cable and cable networks. They can't own these giant video game companies that they don't even have, and they jumped out of the video game business. Essentially, they would say, we want HBO, we want the film division, and we want this and that. We're going to take 15%, 20% of everything. Everything else can go elsewhere, and we will still pay the premium of, let's say, $50 billion. I'm just tossing a number out there. And from their point of view, $50 billion to own 20% of assets will be better than $60 billion from somebody else to own all the assets. That's the key strategy that everybody seems to ignore who's talking about this. That's the same as Fox, because Disney does not own Fox News. They gave that up, but still paid a premium for it. That's what I'm trying to say. That's how Disney can position themselves to buy WB and DC. So let me talk about what would happen with this acquisition and DC. So this is the what if scenario and the outlook, in my opinion. So what would happen? Well, let's say that they make this power move or power play. And again, there's a couple things that are already a giveaway that they might be interested. Because how come WB agreed with Disney to pair up a one lump sum that gives you Hulu, WB Discovery, and HBO? How come a lot of properties and films from HBO will expire and go to Disney and vice versa? Remember just recently you could watch the entire Snyderverse on Disney Plus? Wasn't that weird? Strategic partnerships and knowledge of the business. So what happens when Disney buys WB? What happens with DC? Essentially, I think that they would be allowed. Because, again, there is really this place in the world right now where if somebody like a Paramount was to take on DC, they would have to agree that they need to continue publishing comics. Now, just a quick reminder, comics are more or less a dying business. They are a vanity project that they keep going just because it feeds these films and products and production lines like action figures and all this. When's the last time you went to your local, I don't know, Target and saw all these Paramount properties have action figures everywhere? Or you went to a comic book store and didn't see Paramount properties leased out to Marvel or Image or DC to make comics based on them? Very rare. So Disney could argue about keeping DC alive instead of it going under or becoming something where you only get the minimum offering, which, let's be real, would be just Batman, Superman, and maybe Wonder Woman comics. A very real possibility and a very real argument that they can make is we will keep it alive and we will sign the paperwork stating everything will remain the way that it does. Now, of course, what happens with DC Studios? That's a complex one that I don't really have an answer for just yet. That's going to take me a little bit longer to really write up the notes and bullet points I have to hit and look at some other factors. So that's going to be a follow-up video because this video is way over the time I like to hit, which is between 8 and 9 minutes. But again, I have to talk about so many things here so you guys understand what's going on. So I will be back with the DC Studios angle on this, but what you need to know is WB Discovery will sell before somebody allows it to split, unless WB Discovery is absolutely insane and doesn't take a bid. And that Disney can make a power play move that they will argue will instead save everything instead of dooming it. So stay tuned. Thank you for checking out that video, and thank you for your continued support. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you will, and if you're so inclined and would like some additional content from us, which includes unfiltered content and bonus discussions, we do offer it exclusively in our member section. We hope to see you there. So thank you for watching, and have a good one.